Hello and welcome to my channel The Lab Rats. This is another lecture series from Developmental Biology Unit Limb Development in Tetrapods. Also, I have uploaded lecture series on developmental genetics of Drosophila melanogaster on my YouTube channel, and if you have not watched it yet, then what are you guys even waiting for? The lectures are in very simple language, and as the dates for PhD entrances are getting delayed, you have the opportunity to cover one more important topic. So this first part of the lecture series is all about the introduction of limb development in tetrapods. So we are going to learn about the basics of limb development in tetrapods. So first of all, what is the meaning of this word tetrapod? Okay, so tetra means four and pods or poda means legs. So those organisms that have four limbs are known as tetrapods. So what are the different types of organisms that are included under tetrapods? They can be mammals, reptiles, amphibians, and birds. So these are the different types of organisms that are included under tetrapods, and we are going to learn about the limb development process, the rules of limb development in these tetrapods. Let's begin with this statement given by Charles Darwin in 1859, and he wanted to say that what can be more curious than knowing that in spite of having similar bone pattern and same relative position of their limbs, all the tetrapods perform different function with their limb. For example, in case of man, they uses it for grasping and holding purpose. Moles uses them for digging. Porpoise, which are water mammal, uses them as paddle, and bats whose limbs are modified as wing, they uses them for flying. Also, we know about organism whose limb, if we chop down, will regenerate again. Okay, will regenerate again into a new and normal limb. Okay, so all these things make us very curious to understand this topic, and humans are not just curious, they are greedy as well. Okay, all our research and all our study aims at providing a better world for mankind, and suppose if we unfold all the mechanism of limb development and limb regeneration and somehow succeed in generating a protocol to make it work in case of humans also, then we can provide a new limb to those who born limbless or lose their limb due to any reason in their lifetime. So all these things make this topic even more important, and with the similar curiosity, let's begin the topic. So first of all, let's know about the basic structure of a tetrapod limb. So limbs are of two types: forelimb and hind limb. So those limbs that are present on the anterior end of the body trunk or towards the mouth opening are known as forelimb, and those limbs that are present on the anal opening side or towards the posterior end of the body trunk are known as hind limbs. So if we talk about humans, so in case of humans, forelimbs are hands and hind limbs are legs. Okay, so now let's talk about what are the different section of limb and how bones are arranged in each section. Okay, so there are three section of a limb, that are stylopods, zeugopods, and autopods. So here we are seeing the examples of four limbs in case of humans, birds, and horse. Okay, so in case of stylopod, in forelimb, humerus bone is present. That is, this bone is present. But if we talk about hind limb, so at the place of humerus bone, femur bone is present. Femur. Okay. So now in case of zeugopod, two bones are present, that are radius and ulna. And in case of hind limb, the two bones that are present are tibia and fibula. Now in case of autopods, carpals and digits are present. So carpals and digits are present. There is one more structure, metacarpal, which is not mentioned here. Now in case of hind limb, they are replaced by tarsals and toes. Tarsals and toes. So these are the forelimb structure of human, bird, and horse, and they are the different section of the limb, and these are the different types of bones that are present in each section. Now the bone arrangement in a tetrapod limbs are similar, whether it's about hind limb or forelimb, or it is the limb of a human or bird or horse. We can see that all these organisms share a similar pattern, similar bone pattern in their limbs. Also, they grow in a similar manner, so we can say that they share a basic morphogenetic rule of limb development. Limbs grow in three dimensions, that are they grow in three axes, and all the signaling molecules that are involved in growth of these limbs in three dimensions are well coordinated. So what are these three dimensions? The first one is proximal distal axis. Proximal means close and distal means far. So in case of hand or the forelimb, it is from shoulder to finger, and in case of hind limb, it is from hip to toe. Okay, so close, that is this humerus bone. This humerus bone in the stylopod is closest to the human body as it is connected to the shoulder, and these fingers or digits we can say are far from the human body, so they are on the distal side of the limb. Now, in case of early developmental stage, first of all stylopod is formed, that is this stylopod is formed, then this zeugopod is formed, and at the end this autopod is formed. Now talking about second axis, that is anterior posterior axis. So the side of hand that has thumb, this side of hand that has thumb is known as anterior end of the hand, and the side of hand that has pinky finger, that is this pinky finger or the little finger, is known as posterior axis of the hand. Now coming to the third axis of the hand, it is dorsal ventral axis. So on the ventral axis, on this ventral axis there is palm, palm in case of forelimb, or foot sole in case of hind limb, and on the dorsal side there is present knuckles. Now this same type of axis are present in hind limb also. So how does the limb development initiates, and what are the basic structures that leads to the formation of limb? To understand that, we must understand these 2 points, that are limb field and limb bird. This figure represents the cellular region which will lead to formation of forelimb in future in case of salamander and mouse. And this central cellular region, it is involved in formation of free limb. The surrounding cells leads to formation of peribronchial flank tissue and shoulder girdle. Okay, now to prove that this central cellular region were involved in limb formation, this central cellular region was removed to see if in its absence limbs were being formed or not. Okay, so if limbs were being formed or not. So the answer was very obvious, that if these cellular region were important or leading to limb formation, then in their absence there should not be any limb formation. But to everybody's surprise, even in the absence of this cellular region, a proper limb was developed. Okay, now the next question was, what are the different factors that are leading to formation of normal limb even in the absence of that central cellular region? And in various experiments it was found that this outer circular region was leading to limb development in the absence of this central cellular region. So what happens is that in normal condition, when the central cellular region is present, this outer circular region does not participate in limb formation, but in the absence of the central cellular region, this particular ring can lead to formation of limb. Now to further prove this, in next experiment this whole cellular region was removed. The inner circular region, central circular region and outer circular region, everything was removed to see if in their absence limb was being formed or not. So in this case no limb was formed. And this whole circular region that has the potential to form limb is known as limb field. It can also be said that limb field represents a harmonious equipotential system. That is, every cell in the limb field has the potential to develop limb. Okay, so that is why it is known as a harmonious equipotential system. That is, the cells have equal potential. Now the second point is limb bird. What is this limb bird? For limb bird formation, there are two precursor cells. Okay, lateral plate mesenchymal cells. Lateral plate mesenchymal cells. They are the precursors of skeletal cells. Skeletal cells. Okay, and somoid cells. They are the precursors of muscle cells. So lateral plate mesenchymal cells leads to formation of bones in the limb, and somoid cell leads to the formation of muscles in the limb. Okay, these are the two precursor cells. These mesenchymal cells are actually the derivative of mesoderm. Okay, so you will understand why I'm saying this, why I'm mentioning this mesoderm thing. Okay, so these two precursor cell migrate and they go and accumulate beneath the ectodermal tissue. Our body has three germ layer. Okay, three germ layer. The outer one is known as ectoderm, middle one is known as mesoderm, and the inner one is known as endoderm. So these two precursor cell will go and they will accumulate beneath the ectoderm and there they start proliferating. Suppose this is the ectoderm and this is the mesoderm. So when they go and accumulate there, they start proliferating beneath the ectoderm, and as the space is limited, this mesodermal cell will start bulging out due to excess proliferation. And when the mesoderm will bulge out, ectoderm will bulge out with it. Okay, and they will start progressing forward, and this is known as limb bird. This bulge is known as limb bird. Okay, this limb bird has equipotential system. As we know that limb bird is created from limb field, so they are known as equipotential system. And there is another very good example to prove how limb bird and limb field have harmonious equipotential system. So actually back in 1990s, multi-legged frog and salamanders were found in various ponds of US. When further investigation was done, it was found that the larval form of frog and salamander were getting infected with parasitic trematode worm, and the worm were laying eggs in the abdomen. Okay, so suppose this is the body trunk and it has been infected with worm. This body trunk will have limb bird also, and the worms that infected the body trunk, they used to lay egg. The eggs used to get scattered in the body including the limb bird. So if you see this region, so suppose this is the limb bird, this is the limb bird cells. So when the eggs were getting scattered in the limb bird also, so indirectly it used to divide the limb bird in various chunks, and each and every chunk would lead to formation of limb bird due to its equipotential nature. All this system has the potential to create limb, so even if it was getting divided into various chunks, each and every chunk would lead to formation of limb. Okay, this was leading to the multi-legged frog and salamander. Okay, so when does this limb bird form in our lifetime? To understand it, we must travel back in time. So let's bring our time machine and go back in past. Okay, so when we were 4-week old embryo, in a 4-week embryo, limb development begins. Okay, so limb bird initiates. First of all, forelimb bird is formed. Okay, and after 2 days, hind limb birds are formed. So you do not need to go into much detail of this. So in a 4-week embryo, limb bird initiates. First of all, forelimb bird is formed. Then after 2 days, hind limb bird initiates. And in this way, limb bird formation starts in a 4-week embryo. There are overall 4 limb birds. 4 limb birds in a tetrapod embryo. 2 limb birds are for forelimb and another 2 limb birds are for hind limb development. So this is all about limb field and limb bird. Now our body must have certain mechanism to decide that when, where and how many limbs has to be made. So there are certain discrete locations where limbs are formed and they are known as limb bird. Okay, they are known as limb bird, and all the vertebrate embryo has 4 limb birds. Okay, 4 limb bird, 2 for forelimb and 2 for hind limb. Okay, so there are total 4 limb bird in a vertebrate embryo. And now to understand what were the cells that were involved and that were important for limb development, certain experiments were done and some of them has been shortlisted that what kind of experiment can be done to understand what are the cells that are important for limb development. Okay, so now moving to our first experiment, what was done, that removing certain group of cells and observing that a limb does not develop in their absence. So suppose there is a group of cell. Now if you remove this particular portion of cell from here, okay, so if we remove these cells, then we can have two different type of result. We can still get a normal limb, or we cannot get any limb at all. So if a normal limb developed, it means that these cells were not important. They were not important for limb development. And if there is no limb in the absence of these cells, it means that they were important for limb development. And this was referred as lose it experiment. Okay. That is, after losing certain amount of cell, certain area of cell, are the limbs going to develop in a normal way, or they are not going to develop at all. Now moving on to second experiment, transplanting group of cells to a new location and observing that they form limb in this new place or not. So suppose this is a body trunk and here limbs has to be developed. So these cells are involved in limb development. Now if we take certain cell from here and we transplant it here at this new location. So the question is that whether these cells that were involved in limb development, are they going to develop limb here also? Okay, so again we can get two types of result. We can get a normal limb or we cannot get limb at all. So if these cells they start limb development here also, it means that these cells are independent of their location and they can form limb anywhere. And if they do not form limb here, it means that these cells required a discrete position for limb development. They cannot form limb just like anywhere in the body. Okay, so this was referred as move it. Okay, if we are moving certain cell from one place to another place, are they going to do their function normally or not? Now the third type of experiment was marking group of cells with dye or radioactive precursors and observing that their descendant partake in limb development or not. So suppose this is a group of cell. So what we do, that suppose this is a region of cell which is involved in limb development. We know that this is involved in limb development, but which particular area of cell we don't know. So we radio label this particular region of cell and then we allow the limb to develop. Okay, now we analyze the cells of this limb. So we can get either only the normal cells or we can get normal cell as well as radio labeled cells. So this means here where only normal cells are present, no labeled cells are found, it means that this particular region was not involved in limb development. Somewhere in this region some cells were involved in limb development, this was not involved. But if we find these radio labeled cells in the limb, it means that this particular radio labeled cells were also involved in limb development, and this was categorized under find it experiment. That is, you radio label and then you find them in a developed limb, whether those radio labeled cell progeny are present there or not. So we know the importance of limb bird for limb development. Now we are going to understand about three important components of limb bird. So this is a limb bird. The most distal group of cells that are present in limb bird, they are known as AER, or apical ectodermal ridge. Okay, so what is the function of this AER? They provide signal to induce the mesenchymal cells present just beneath the AER for them to proliferate continuously and helps in development of limb bird towards the distal area. Now the second most important one is progress zone. They are known as mesenchyma, also distal mesenchyma, So this progress zone or PZ is also known as distal mesenchyma. So those mesenchymal cells that are present on most distal region directly beneath the AER, they are known as distal mesenchyma or the progress zone. And why are they called progress zone? Because they proliferate continuously after getting signal from AER, and because of their continuous proliferation they are known as progress zone. They help in progression of the limb bird towards the distal area. Now the third most important one is the ZPA or the zone of polarizing activity. Okay, zone of polarizing activity. It helps in anterior posterior axis development. That is, they decide which side the thumb is going to form and which side the pinky finger is going to form. So they are going to maintain the polarity, anterior posterior polarity. That is why they are known as zone of polarizing activity or ZPA. Here is a magnified image where you can see that this is the limb bird and this is the outermost most distal cell, and this which is elevated in somehow this is elevated, this is AER. This is AER in the limb bird. So this is the limb bird, and the most distal area, cells present in the most distal area are AER. So let us draw a basic frame of the signaling pathway which is involved in limb bird formation. We cannot know about all the signaling molecule at once because it will be much more difficult to understand. And as we will progress with different parts of this lecture series, that is proximal distal axis formation, dorsal ventral axis formation, anterior posterior axis formation. So new signaling molecule will keep on adding to this flow chart, and by the end of the lecture series we will have a complete picture of this signaling pathway. So right now we have to draw just a basic frame to understand the basic signaling mechanism of limb bird formation. Lateral, so lateral plate mesenchyma cells releases FGF10. This FGF10 is stabilized by two different molecules in two different limb field. In case of forelimb field, it is stabilized by WNT2B molecule. And in case of hind limb field, it is stabilized by WNT8C molecule. Okay, so now this FGF10 has been stabilized, so it will induces the ectoderm. Okay, the mechanism by which FGF10 induces the ectoderm is known as Wnt beta catenin pathway. And the Wnt molecule which is involved here can be Wnt3A or Wnt3. Okay. So Wnt3A is present in case of chicks and 3 is present in case of human as well as mice. Okay, so the mechanism pathway through which FGF10 induces the ectoderm is Wnt beta catenin pathway, and as ectoderm is induced, it leads to formation of AER or apical ectodermal ridge. Now this AER releases another signaling molecule which is known as FGF8. This FGF8, what does it do? It induces the lateral plate mesenchyma cells to produce even more FGF10. Now what is the function of FGF10? It leads to continuous proliferation of mesenchymal cells. Now what is the result of this continuous proliferation? So suppose this is the mesoderm, this is the ectoderm. Now as the mesoderm is induced and it will start continuous proliferation, so due to this continuous proliferation it will bulge out. And this bulging will leads to the proximal to distal growth and leads to the formation of the limb bird. Okay. Okay, so due to this continuous proliferation, the mesoderm bulge out, so does the ectoderm, and limb bud forms. So this mechanism, this signaling is also known as limb forming interaction between ectoderm and mesoderm. Why limb forming? Because this is the ectoderm, it is releasing FGF8, it is inducing the mesoderm, and this interaction leads to continuous proliferation, due to which limb bud forms and limb development starts. So this is the first benefit of this FGF10 signaling. The second one is that it does not allow the mesenchyma cells to form cartilages. Okay, so as the plasticity of this mesenchyma cell is maintained, it does not form cartilage cells, and it keeps on continuous proliferation to form the limb. Now the limb bud is formed. So for the continuous formation of limb, it will grow in three different axes or three different plane, which are proximal distal axis, anterior posterior axis, and dorsal ventral axis. So this is the overview of how limb bud is formed. As we will progress with the lecture series, more and more signaling molecule will keep on adding to this flowchart. So this is all about the basic of limb development. Thank you so much for watching the video. If this video was useful, please like and share it. Subscribe to our channel, and for recent updates, click on the notification bell icon. Also, you can post all your video related query in the comment section. For video related queries and all the recent updates, you can also follow us on Facebook. You can find the link in the description box. There is a watch video icon. By clicking on that icon, you can directly visit on our YouTube channel and watch all the videos. So see you in the next video. Until then, keep learning and keep motivating.